don't you think God, in some ways, gives us self-determination, sends us down here and says, go do it. And, it's then up to us to either go do it or not?
That's a great question.
I try to ask great questions.
You need something bigger to serve than just your own ambition. Work as if God does nothing, believe as if God does everything. There's a difference between a dreamer and a visionary. I think many people have big dreams, but I also think, a dreamer is someone who finds himself waiting for a dream to happen. They might be waiting on God, or they might be waiting on the economy, or waiting on their boss. I think a visionary is someone who sees their dream as something that they've been given and responsible to make happen.
I'm joined today by Stefan Junaeus. I am so thrilled that I made the acquaintance of this guy. He has really made an impact on me already. We have kind of debated a few things before we even got started here. But I want to tell you, first of all, about his titles. He is a CEO, a pastor, a storyteller, which I can't wait to talk about that. He's an editor-in-chief, a husband. He is a someday father, a Californian, which I'll forgive you for, a nephew, a son, and a faith-based entrepreneur. So I usually start with a cold question. So here's your cold question. No prep on this one. I didn't warn you in advance about it.
No press kit.
So you help people tell their stories for a living.
Yeah, I do.
What's one story that changed your life?
Oh, man. That's a great question. So I guess a little bit about me for context. I started my career as a ghostwriter. I've worked on a lot of stories. Personally, ghost wrote over 50 books. Now we have Signature Message does 50. I think that, I think a great story. I did a book a while ago with my Uncle Tim called Staying Steady in Unsteady Times. And it was based off of a set of messages that he wrote when I was a kid. And so I grew up in a very interesting environment where I traveled a lot. I went to a lot of different conferences. My mother was a public speaker. And so it was really cool because growing up, I would hear these incredible messages that my uncle would speak or my family at these events. And so it was great to be able to take that and then years later really compile it into this incredible book that we co-authored together and came out. That one to me is very special because it reminds me of my childhood and where I'm from.
So your uncle is Tim Storey.
Yes, Tim Storey.
Famed Tim Storey.
Yeah.
Your mother is?
Yeah, Paige Junaeus.
Yes.
Yeah.
You grew up very much, I would say, maybe in the shadow of greatness.
Yeah, I definitely had access to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, I feel like so much of success comes from seeing something modeled for you. And so, one of the privileges that I was given was just access to incredible people who did great things, who, had high impact. And I think growing up, being able to see that, I think was really inspiring. But it also taught me to think big and to push yourself and build your life and move forward. So it was definitely a huge privilege to have that level of access, but also support.
Have you ever felt a struggle between being in the shadow of somebody so great as Tim Storey versus trying to build your own lane?
Yeah, so this is an interesting question. I'm a big believer that you shouldn't compete with people. You should try to add value. When I started even public speaking years ago, I'm 36 now, but I started when I was like 20. I often would have to open for Tim. And I'll often tell, people when you work with incredible people, you really can't compete. You shouldn't try to compete. You should just really try to add value. And so I think that, I think growing up in that environment, to me, it was less of a shadow and maybe more of an opportunity of being able to say...
That's a growth mindset.
Yeah, to be able to say, hey, I have this incredible access to, people that are doing incredible things, but also maybe this is an opportunity for me to add value and find, something I'm passionate about. And so for me, it was writing and publishing. I love books. I'm an avid reader. And so I started as a ghostwriter, and then we started doing a lot of books. Now we work with, all kinds of, CEOs, executive public speakers. And so, yeah, so much of that I owe to, the early experiences I've had.
So you are a faith-based leader also.
Yeah.
How does your faith inform your approach to publishing, to entrepreneurship, to guiding others on their branding?
Yeah. So, I think that faith, what faith taught me is that, you need something bigger to serve than just your own ambition. And so I'm a big believer that every person should have a portion of their life where it's just not about them. So, some people, they start a nonprofit. Other people, they go into ministry. Some people, serve at their local church. For other folks, it might be, their soup kitchen, or maybe there's just people that they work with that they're actively mentoring. I just think that it's the best way to live your life is to live it in such a way where you're not, it's just not about you, and you're not just being successful, but you're paying it forward in some meaningful way. And so I think that was something that my work as a senior leader at the Congregation Family has afforded me. I would also say, in terms of the values, I'm a big relationship guy. Anyone knows me knows that generosity is a value that I personally have. I try to add value first, and then we work together. Or if we work with clients, we want to over deliver. And we really want to help them be successful. I think that's part of my faith. Churches are incredible institutions if you think about the fact that hundreds of people from everywhere come together, and through generosity, they build buildings, they start ministries, they help kids, and all of that is through generosity. All of it through giving. And so, I would say that's probably the biggest thing that has impacted my professional career.
Do you think that there's a tension between spiritual alignment and market ambition?
I don't think so. I think that, wealth always follows value. I think the more value you create, the more wealthy you'll be. And I think the same is true in religion. There's a great story, Genesis 1, where God creates the world. He creates Adam, and I'm a literary guy, and so it's one of the first images we have of purpose in written language form. And after God creates Adam, he names him. He gives him a purpose and a function, and he calls him forth to be fruitful and multiply. In other words, the first thing God does after he creates human beings is gives them a vision to produce value. And so, I think if you're living your life well, everyone is better off because you're in the world. And I think if you're building your business well, all your clients are better off because you're serving them.
What was a moment when you had to face reinvention?
That's a great question.
I try to ask great questions.
Honestly, probably during COVID. We were a publishing company. COVID really changed the dynamic of public speaking, of conferences, of coaching. Before, for most of
it probably changed church too.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that was I remember going. 1 week we had, our churches are growing. We're meeting in person. To us having, great speakers. We're working for a lot of authors that are they were all on the road. And within a factor of 10 days, our church was closed,
died.
And every speaker that we worked with was off of the speaking circuit. And there was a ton of uncertainty in that space. I remember us taking, 1 year, it was something like 60 Sundays. We were closed for 60 Sundays, which was wild. But that was, a real moment of reinvention. We restructured our whole church. I restructured my company and around this new environment. And, luckily it all worked out. But I remember at the time it was far from certain.
How did you handle the lack of certainty? Did you have self-doubt in that time frame?
Yeah, I think if you do anything right, you're going to have some doubt. I think definitionally that's the case. I mean, if you're doing, the more successful you are in any given domain, the larger your problems grow. So if you're great at your job and you get a promotion, then you have to manage a team. And so by definition, if you're doing something correctly and moving forward properly, you're always going to have one foot in a space that but also one foot in a space that's new and unknown. And so I think with that comes, a degree of uncertainty and sure, self-doubt. Again, by definition, you're going to doubt yourself if you're doing something you've never done before. But I also think, despite that, be courageous. I think that there's a great quote left by Jeff Bezos where he says that most people overestimate risk and they underestimate opportunity. I have found that to be the case in life and in business. So I think most of our fears that we have are probably over-feared, and most opportunities we underutilize. And so, yeah.
So when you were going through that time frame where you were reinventing your company, reeling from the pandemic, what was something that helped you shift your perspective and shift your business and go through that reinvention phase? What was something that you clung to?
I think for me, I would talk to our team a lot. And I remember within the first, 2 weeks of everything, and we had a big staff meeting and we were talking about our path forward. And my view was, everything has changed. But why don't we see this as an opportunity? Because things are different and we don't know what they are yet. We don't know what the opportunities are, but if we can look for them, I think we're going to be fine. And I think that ended up being true. Just a small example, before COVID, when a potential author would meet us or when we were doing sales, we had to meet in person. And so that would take hours, right? Trying to get someone on Zoom was impossible.
Right.
But after the pandemic, everybody kind of adjusted. And so now, the amount of connections that I'm personally able to make or we're able to make as a team, as 3, 4, 5x just with kind of the new use of technology. That would be an example of just how something shifted and it kind of played in our favor. But the biggest thing I think for me was just kind of going into it saying, hey, even though I can't see this now, I believe that there are opportunities.
Where do you think you learned a growth mindset like that?
I think that part of it was modeled for me, being around, I have a very entrepreneurial mother and father, my uncle too, being around a lot of business people. You start to see folks who have been successful and almost all of them, a lot of their success doesn't come from everything going right. It comes a lot from them identifying, I think, opportunities or maybe taking things that are unexpected and finding value. And so, I think I learned watching that if I could help people, whether it's in the marketplace or in the nonprofit space, and I spent most of my time trying to do that, that the opportunities would reveal themselves.
Yeah.
And come up.
What do you think has been your biggest struggle so far? Business, life, otherwise?
Oh man, probably the same as every entrepreneur, lack of time and lack of imagination. I think time is always an issue, especially, when I first started my company, it was only me and now it's not. And so going through that process, finding the amount of time, that's not really novel, but that has been a struggle for sure. And then I think the second is, a lack of imagination. I just think as human beings, we struggle to see what the future could be because we assume that the future will be like the past. And so I think you actively have to work at that. In my case, that's an area of my life where I've actively pushed myself to think creatively in a business environment, but also in a pastoral care environment.
What do you think has been your biggest failure so far?
Probably, that's a tough question. I think every failure you learn a lot. I do, and I don't think I'm the only one. I constantly feel, the burden of missed opportunities.
Yeah.
I choose to use that as a way to, move me forward. And so, you try something, it doesn't work. And so you have to, failure is just a part of the growth process. But yeah, I think many entrepreneurs feel this. You look back and you go, man, it took me like 8 years to learn that lesson. I would have loved to learn it in 3.
Right.
But it took 8.
What do you think is a lesson that you could have learned quicker?
I think probably the biggest lesson would be, I don't think that there are the constraints and limits on potential that we put ourselves on.
I like that.
I think the more I've done entrepreneurship and pastoral care, the more I've realized that there is no ceiling. You don't know the upper limit of your potential. You don't know what you could create with other people. And yeah, most of the things you've probably told yourself you can't do are wrong. And yeah, I tell my wife all the time, I don't have time to be insecure anymore. Like I'm such a believer that you should just go for it. Don't overthink it at all. And then find the opportunity once you're there.
I think that's a lesson a lot of people don't learn until later in life.
Yeah, sure.
I think that a lot of times we I'm saying we, I mean probably me, but I think a lot of people spend, their youth in self-doubt, and then as they get older, it's like then you get to the kind of fuck it stage.
Totally. Yeah. I think if you can learn that earlier, I mean, it will literally change your life. I feel like if I'm a pastor, right? So I work with a lot of young people, and one of the things I tell them, if they took 95% of them thinking about making the decision to start that business and just invested that time in trying to figure it out, they would be like years ahead. And so, I'm a real believer in you should jump in, learn as much as you can. But yeah, my big lesson would be to wherever you're doubting yourself, that's probably the direction you should head, and you should head there as fast as possible.
How do you balance this? This is all over Instagram, or maybe it's just in my feed right now, but this kind of what I would perceive as a little bit of a debate, spiritual debate right now between the concept of self-doubt balanced against trust in God. Yeah.
I think there's a great quote I love. I was a history major. Work as if God does nothing, believe as if God does everything. I think there's a difference. I wrote it. I wrote in my book, Your Breakthrough Year, there's a difference between a dreamer and a visionary. And so I tell the story, when I was a kid, my dad loved to play the lottery. And so every week we'd go buy a lottery ticket and we would talk about all the dreams of what we would do with the money and how we would spend it on my mom and what vacation we'd go on. But I think many people have big dreams. I think most people have dreams. They have a desire to do something. But I also think, a dreamer is someone who finds themselves waiting for a dream to happen. And so they're always waiting. So they might be waiting on God, or they might be waiting on the economy, or waiting on their boss. I think a visionary is someone who sees their dream as something that they've been given and responsible to make happen. And so saying it a little bit differently, a dreamer is someone who the agency is outside of them, so they're waiting for something to happen. Yeah. A visionary is someone who sees themselves as the agent, as someone who's actually responsible to build the school or build the company. I think that Genesis 1, Genesis 2 is a clear idea. God, I think, calls us forward to create a vision for our life and to see ourselves as the agents of change in the world. And then I think he partners with us. Don't
you think God, in some ways, puts us here and gives us self-determination? Mm-hmm. He doesn't do it for us, and he's not going to do it for us. I mean, he kind of sends us down here and says, go do it.
Totally.
And, it's then up to us to either go do it or not.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also think that, I think it starts with us saying yes. We have this line in our church, God doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called. And basically the idea is it starts with our yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think that when we say yes and we jump in, then to quote my Uncle Tim, his super hits our natural. And I think that's a great way to live.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I mean, I think that it's a partnership between faith and your doing. I mean, you got to have your faith in God, but you also and trust in God, but you also have to go do the work.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. What's one strategy that you've implemented in your life that kind of changed everything?
Realizing that creating wealth and value start from specializing in something. I think a lot of folks, they don't stick with anything long enough to produce any meaningful value. So they'll do a job for a year and then they'll do something else and they'll do something else. I don't think you can scale anything without really focusing.
Sticking to it.
Yeah. And I think that that's something I've learned a lot. If you see like a discrepancy between high performing folks and folks that they might be educated or well connected, but they have not been able to kind of get that next level. Almost always it has to do with
quitting too soon,
with focus. Yeah. You'll notice that anyone who's built a company or anything, they picked a lane, they specialized, they've worked really hard, they've done the same thing, and they've done exceptionally good. And so you can't scale anything without focus. So
turning to your publishing, you're in book publishing. How long have you been doing that?
15 years.
Speaking of sticking to it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
There's a lot of change going on in the publishing industry right now.
A ton.
What makes a message worth publishing?
Yeah. I think that there's in the church world, we have this line, there's a difference between a teacher and a minister. So a teacher is someone who provides great information. A minister is someone who touches your soul. And I think what's true in that world is true in the publishing world. And so I think that good books teach great information. I think great books, they inspire. They say something to a reader that gives them the okay. Either lets them know they're not alone or encourages them to say yes to doing something or stepping up. That's why I love books. I think it's so important because I think with anyone who's considering authorship, there is an audience of people where you're the perfect person to tell that person to get up.
Ooh, I like that.
And so,
I like the get up part.
Yeah. And it might feel like the same information, like, hey, a lot of people have written books about business. Well, there's a lot of information out there.
Right.
But, but people need other people to tell them that they can do it. And so, as an author, maybe you can be that person for them.
Yeah, I like that. How do you help a new author find their authentic voice?
Yeah. So the first thing we do in our first 4 weeks with every client is we take inventory of their career, all their content. We'll do research in their specific area that they want to publish a book. And the reason for that is to really craft a message that we think is going to make the most impact. Most people who are competent, who have earned the right to be heard, because by the time we meet an author, they've already been successful. They have a number of things they can talk about. And so it's really finding, I think, that specific thing that resonates with the author that they can own. But I also think number two, finding a message that can really break through the marketplace and inspire readers.
How do you read the marketplace in this day and age? It feels like the marketplace moves so fast.
Yeah. I'm a big believer you start with the industry. And so
the industry that the author is in?
Correct, yeah. And so, the more specific, the better. I like to play a game with our authors where I say, imagine if we wrote the best book in the world. It looked great. It felt great. South by Southwest is calling you to be on stage.
South by Southwest just dropped the panel picker.
Yeah, like it's a big, right? It's amazing, but only 100 people could read your book.
Right.
Who are those 100
Who are
people?
the 100 people?
And then what do you want them to do in spite of it?
Yeah.
And I think the best books are specific. I think the books that try to serve everybody, no one buys and reads. And so my recommendation to authors is let's get real specific. Who are you trying to help? What industry? What age demographic? Where are they in their journey? If you're helping someone in the professional space, are they a new entrepreneur? Are they old entrepreneur? And then, let's design the book and the brand where you're the number one thought leader in the country for those people. You're the number one person that can help them.
That seems to be somewhat consistent, whether it's books or, platforms of any type. That seems to be a consistent approach.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, like people choose books because they have a problem. And so if you imagine the last time you went to a bookstore, almost always you go in without necessarily wanting to buy a specific book, but you typically have something you want to learn about. So you have a problem. So you walk in and maybe you're starting a company and you're trying to figure out how, to file your taxes or maybe, you're interested in World War II history. And so you go to the World War II section. And so the way that people engage with books is that they have a problem that they're trying to solve. And then they pick the book that best solves that problem specifically for them. So imagine the entrepreneur that goes to the business section and then checks out all these books. They might see 10 to 15 books on how to start their small business. They're going to pick the book that says something specifically to them. And so that's why it's so important to be specific, as an author and really get clear on who do you want to help? Who do you want to be the number one solution for? And once you have that, then you build everything around it.
Gotcha. AI. AI is going to disrupt a lot of industries, but it's certainly going to affect the book publishing media industry.
Yeah.
How do you see that affecting your industry?
Yeah, I think that, with any technological innovation, it tends to democratize access into a given industry. So I think about how record labels held the keys, and then you have, companies like Spotify that came and democratized the ability for creators to publish music. The same thing happened, about 5-10 years ago with distribution. Distribution centers were acquired and bought up, and it became much simpler to distribute your book than it was 10-15 years ago. My hope is that AI does the same. With innovation means lower costs. The most expensive cost for someone typically writing a book today is professional ghostwriting. It's very expensive. I mean, just the ghostwriting alone can be anywhere from $40,000 to $120,000 for a work, and so it prices a lot of people out. And so, ideally or hopefully, maybe technology will mean that we can help more people. Books can become cheaper, and we could raise the level of professional writing for folks at every stage of their thought leadership journey to share their story.
Do you see AI as a threat or a tool?
It's a tool. The reason for that is, large language models, LLMs, they really work off of existing material. So, an LLM is trained by reading, like a billions of pages worth of text. So it's really good at mimicking what's already been done. But like with good art, you're going to need individuals that say something new, and also when a founder or someone who has a company, when they tell their personal story, it's a personal story and there's that human connection. And so I think what will happen with AI is, I would say like cheap content, generic content is most likely going to explode. It's going to become cheaper than ever to produce subpar stuff. Kind of like social media right now.
Right.
There's like a million videos and it's only getting worse. I think the same is going to be true in publishing. We're going to see more books published than ever, but 99% of it is going to be really flat and uninteresting and generic. And I think actual premium publishing will be the future because I think in a world where information is free, I think that story and connection is going to become a premium source of value. And so I think publishing is going to change a lot, but it's going to be another way of saying it, it's kind of like how marketing is going through this. It's going to be less about brands and more about people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess that, that was one thing that we talked about before we started this interview was the concept that AI is going to become so automated or so homogenous that it's going to be hard to figure out what's authentic, whether it's books or videos or podcasts or social media. It's going to be hard to cut through what's authentic. So with books, I mean, how do you foresee AI and authenticity kind of being this tug and pull? Like how are we going to push through that and show the world what's actually authentic?
Yeah, I think everything's going to go via personal brand. And so I think that the trust factor is not going to be in brands or in platforms because content's going to be, so ubiquitous on platforms and AI generated. I think that the trust is going to move away from brands and it will move to people.
Yeah.
And so I think we'll have people that we trust.
And, and I feel like that's been happening in branding and in marketing.
Yeah, a lot.
For years. I mean, I feel like there was that is a pendulum and maybe it hasn't fully swung all the way yet.
I mean, an example of that would be, Tesla's stock price getting hit recently, obviously with, Elon's politics.
Yeah.
At this point, like if you look at the top, a lot of these big companies, their founder is the brand of the company. And so to me, that's a perfect example. I think publishing is the same.
Yeah.
We're going to see, when I started, a reference brand book was really big because, if we could write a book with great information, we could have reference brand. Well, now with, AI, information is cheaper than ever. So now stories and people and communities and, building books around shaping audiences. And not having to go through traditional publishing, but go through professional publishing, I think is the future.
Elon's a good example, and I mean, there's so many examples like that.
Yeah.
Where the corporation is no longer the brand. I mean,
Meta and Mark Zuckerberg is another great example of that. Yeah.
But you could almost at any level use that as an example because we've gone so far away from the corporation as the brand that now the executive is the brand. Executive
Correct,
branding is so important and crucial now.
And I think that's true. I think that's why publishing. I think every entrepreneur should be a published author. Because I think that they are their story, the story of the company, and your trust in that person is going to drive sales, but it's also going to drive their network and the impact of the company. And so that's why I think that professional publishing is the future because if there's two competing companies, they provide the same service and one of them has a brand that you can trust and he's actively adding value or she's actively adding value, she's going to compete.
Right. And a book is a way to show that.
I mean, a book fundamentally, it's a piece of technology, right? It's a packaged system of value that empowers a author to scale impact.
Yeah. To me, the book, the podcast, website, I mean, all of that is kind of a package that all goes together that communicates your story. We could call it a brand, but it communicates that ability to tell your story to your customer. And we've seen that storytelling, come from the commercial brand telling a story, Tom's Shoes takes some of the price and goes and buys shoes for, poor children somewhere. That's a way of telling the brand story. Yeah. But I don't know who Tom is, you know.
Totally.
And
that's funny.
But
I sat
now,
next to him once at an event.
Well, you may know who he is. But I'm just saying, but now I think we're kind of even coming a little further where now we want to know who Tom is and what Tom's story is and why shoes? Tom, tell me why shoes,
Sure.
Maybe I need him on my podcast, but now we want to know what his story is and why shoes were important to him and why he wanted to, buy shoes for poor people or something, Yeah,
the term admire is to admire someone is the process of seeing something in someone that you want to be. And that's why I think story is so important, because giving people an opportunity, not only to tell the story of your company, but just be adding value. We have a term in publishing called the right to be heard, and that's the collective experience that you have that has produced you into an expert in your given field. And so at that point, folks need help in finding you, and they're building their business, whatever the industry is. So let's take like entrepreneurship. You have hundreds of thousands of entrepreneurs all over the United States who are actively trying to build their business, and they're looking to cut their curve down from 10 years to figuring out to under 3. And the best way they can do that is to connect with a person who has, walked out the journey of transformation ahead of them and has mapped it out for them to follow. And so, you can do that informally through mentorship. So plenty of people do that informally, right? They've achieved something in a given domain, and so they informally offer advice. To be an author is to be in the business of formally helping people experience transformation.
I like that. That's very powerful.
Yeah.
What is your favorite book? You can't say the Bible.
My favorite book of all time?
Yes.
Oh, man. A book I read a lot a few years ago was Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life.
Oh, that's a good one.
I really liked that book a lot. That's definitely high on the list. I would say Tim Storey's Come Back and Beyond. That had a big impact on me when I read it years ago. Excited. Another book, David Meltzer's Connected to Goodness. We're doing a second edition, which is a co-author and expanded edition. Part of why I was so attracted to working with him was because I thought his book was fantastic. And so, there's a lot of great books out there.
I love that. I love that. I always love asking people what their favorite book is.
Yeah,
especially
totally.
People that are readers.
Mine is tough. It's like asking a film director what their favorite movie is.
Well, me too, because I'm a reader too. Best fiction book, favorite fiction?
Oh, man. I really liked fiction. The Wheel of Time series was great. I really like C.S. Lewis. Probably The Great Divorce. Fascinating read. It's like 100 pages. You can read it in a couple hours. Love that book. Yeah.
I was such a reader. I'm not as much of a reader now because I consume podcasts or shorter versions of content anymore. But whenever I was younger, I was such a reader. I read everything Michener wrote.
Okay.
But I read so fast that I loved how big those books were.
Yeah.
That it would keep me enthralled for a longer period of time.
Yeah.
So I just went through, Centennial was my first Michener, but I literally read every Michener book. Like I would just consume them, and they would take me about a week or maybe 2 weeks max.
Sure.
But I would just voraciously consume a Michener book.
I love that. That's amazing.
So, and I think, I don't know, Og Mandino's University of Success may have been maybe one of my favorite self-help nonfiction books. Zig Ziglar was another author. I've read everything he wrote. Of course, very classic.
Yeah.
Sharon Lecter, Think and Grow Rich for Women. Very impactful for me.
Yeah, totally.
All right. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
My father gave me great advice. He said whenever someone's looking to make a big change in their life, they're looking for a person.
Ooh.
And so if you want to help somebody, maybe you can be that person. And so I always use that whenever we do it.
That gave me a little bit of a gut punch.
Yeah, I just whenever we do a book, I always think of especially if I'm co-authoring it, I'm always thinking that there's someone who's going to be on the other side of this book that needs us to be the reason that they say yes.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that a lot. You may have just changed my life with that little piece of wisdom there. I love that. What was your dad's name?
Stieg.
Stieg. We're going to credit Stieg with that.
Yeah.
All right. And, none of us, this is always my final question. Every podcast, I guess, has to have their final question.
Yeah.
So this is my Jeopardy final question for you, okay?
Yeah.
So none of us know what amount of time we have left. So if today were it for you and this was your final day and you had no more time left, what would you want your legacy to be known for?
That's a great question. Probably that I tried to live well. I think you can always, I think you can always try to be successful and get accolades. But I think just to be a good person, to be a good man, I think, and strive for that. And that has been said about the people that you were closest to, I think is a pretty good deal.
I love that. I always wonder whenever I ask that question of people how I would answer it. Because you're on the spot, I'm not,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, totally.
But I think that I said Zig Ziglar. I think that I would borrow from Zig Ziglar, and I would say to have lived a life of significance.
Yeah.
That he talks about going from success to significance. And I would say to have lived a life of significance.
That's great.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure.
Of course.